Good afternoon. Exciting week for Florida A&M football as we continue conference play this week against North Carolina Central. Of course, last week was a very spirited, tough-fought victory against Savannah State here at home. Exciting to play in front of our home crowd. Of course, we're third in the country in attendance right now, so Rattler Nation is definitely standing up and supporting these young men and giving them a great home field advantage. We're going on the road this week. Of course, anytime you try to win a championship, you have to learn how to win on the road in conference. And so it'll be a tall challenge for us to take the long trip to Durham, North Carolina. Hopefully the roads have cleared from the weather where we can get there smoothly. But regardless of the situation, we know there's a huge task at hand, which is playing a football team that's playing really good ball right now. And again, we know we have to clean up some things that we've done in the last few weeks in the form of penalties and turnovers. If we can do that, we feel like we give ourselves a great chance to go in and start a winning streak and win 2 straight and continue our quest to compete for a MEAC championship.
Coach, you said it, after the game that this team played, almost a complete second half. Does it make you feel good that certainly this team hasn't played the first 2 full halves complete, and that where they can get to and how scary almost this team can be when they reach that potential and reach that place that you want them to be?
Well, that's something that we talked about after the game and even Sunday at our team meeting. We've seen in spurts this year how potent we can be on offense. We've seen in spurts this year how dominant we can be on defense. We've seen in spurts how effective we can be in special teams and flipping the field and creating points for the team. And so the goal for us is to put it all together for 60 minutes. And this is a league where there are a lot of close won football games. And a lot of times it comes down to the team that doesn't beat themselves and has the type of self-inflicted wounds that we've had over the first 4 weeks of the season. And so it was good to see us play our last half of football clean, minimal penalties, not turning the ball over. Defensively, did a really good job. Special teams wise, had a couple of block kicks. And so I think this was probably the most complete half that we played all season. And hopefully we can continue that trend. But it takes preparation. It takes our guys to continue to understand and believe that all the little things matter. We can't overlook anything if we want to be the best team that we can possibly be.
You mentioned that NC Central's a team that's playing pretty good ball right now. When you're taking a look at their film, what's really jumping off the page at you?
They play extremely hard. They're very sound in what they do. They're not a team that's going to throw you a whole bunch of looks to try to confuse you. They're going to line up and play base football, and they're going to make you execute. And again, they've obviously done a really good job there over the last few years. They've won a share of the conference championship, a few times over the last couple of years. So, they're a program that's pretty established right now. I think they believe in what they're doing. You can tell that by the way that they play. And they have some really good players. And so for us, the last, kind of like Savannah State, the last few years have really come down to close games against North Carolina Central. I don't think any game has been more than 7 points as far as the point spread at the end. So we got to get ready for a 60-minute game. And again, it's going to take all 3 phases to play good football, not perfect football, but good football for us to go in on the road in a hostile environment to give ourselves the best chance.
Coach, you've had a lot of milestones in your career, and I'm looking back, I didn't see anything at Prairie View playing any MEAC schools, so you got your first MEAC win last Saturday, and it's not a big sample size, but your thoughts now on the conference with, at least a game under your belt.
Well, again, I've been hearing about the MEAC as a coach for the last 6 years, being in their sister conference, the SWAC. I grew up watching MEAC football, of course, being from this area, so I got to watch FAMU play North Carolina A&T, Delaware State, South Carolina State, Bethune-Cookman. I've seen those games in the past, so I'm familiar with the legacy of the MEAC. I guess the physicality is something that we're adjusting to now as a coaching staff. The amount of physical play that's in the MEAC. You look at the scores, there are a lot of close scores. There are not a lot of blowout. Even this weekend with Bethune and Howard, it's a high-scoring game, but the final score came down to 5 points. I think every game in conference, aside from ours against Savannah, was within 1 or 2 scores. And so you have to be prepared to win those close games, and you got to be prepared to play hard for 60 minutes. And we got to prepare ourselves mentally as a football team and physically to endure, a tough 8-game conference schedule. and number 2 for us is this weekend against Central.
And a follow-up on the MEAC, Central, this is their first conference game. Their first game against Howard was canceled because of the storm. Is it a plus, a minus, or neutral that you have at least one game under your belt in the conference and this is their opener?
I don't know if it's a benefit to either team. We both played enough football to kind of have an idea of who we are as a football team. You have 2 teams that's coming in that are in control of their own destinies. Just like we told our team last week against Savannah State, right now we still control our destiny in the MEAC. But they don't have a loss either. They don't have a win, but they don't have a loss. And so technically they control their own destiny. So both teams should come in loose. Both teams should come in feeling pretty good about themselves, not having to come back from a conference loss and look at the scores and worry about who's won to keep them in the conference race. So right now you got 2 teams that are going in saying that if we take care of business, we can be MEAC champs. And that provides for good, solid football for the fans.
Coach, can you just talk about the team chemistry between Ryan Stanley and Chad Hunter and what you expect to see from those guys against Central?
Well, I think they began to build a rapport last season. You started to see Chad and Ryan hook up a lot more towards the end of the season, and so I think they kind of trust one another, and that's carried on all the way through now. And again, not to rehash anything from previous weeks, but Chad wasn't in the game on that last play against Jackson State. Had he been in the game, Ryan would have thrown the fade to him. But that's the trust that they have in each other. And so, but Chad's a guy that works extremely hard. He's been battling some nagging injuries, this season. And Ryan has kind of found Marcus Williams and Xavier Smith and Zende as other complementary guys. But we know Chad's our bell cow out wide. He's our leader, in that group. He's the guy that we look to make the big plays. And when he plays well, we typically perform pretty well on offense. Didn't have the statistics last week that maybe he's accustomed to having, but you watch him block, you watch him play with effort. He's a champion, and we need more guys like that if we're going to continue to progress as a program and give ourselves a chance to be champions.
Can we expect to see more playing time from Bishop?
Oh yeah, yeah, that goes without saying. Again, but we still will be a running back by committee. All of those guys, they're very deserving of playing. Last week Ricky was held because of injury. Devin got injured in the first half, and so the second half was more Bishop and Deshaun Smith. So we only had 2 of the 4 that we could play. But this week we anticipate having all 4 of them back. So at some point in the game, I think you will see all 4 of those guys. But right now Bishop's averaging almost 7 yards every time he touches the football from the backfield, and you want to continue to give him the ball, see if he can continue to replicate that type of success.
What makes him so special? He seems to be so explosive, no matter either as a receiver or as a runner. How do you describe his particular skill set?
Well, I don't think it's his skill set that makes him special. I think it's what's inside of him. And he probably has the biggest heart on this football team. He's a guy that really comes from humble beginnings, out of Jacksonville Reigns. Anyone who knows Jacksonville knows the area that many of those kids come out of. He's a guy that has a kid already, in college. He's a walk-on, paying his own way to school. So he has enough motivation, self-motivation, to be a really good football player. So his work ethic is really what makes him the player that he is. He's probably pound for pound, he's definitely pound for pound our strongest football player. He's probably 150-some pounds, but he can squat over 500. Benches close to 300, if not over 300. And so he's a guy that works extremely hard in the weight room. He works extremely hard, in the classroom, on the practice field. And so the success that he's having is no surprise to me because I see the work that he puts in every single day. It may be a surprise to everybody on the outside because they're not at practices, they're not in the weight room. But, we tell those guys, we get what we deserve. And Bishop has deserved to perform at a high level because of the work and attitude that he puts forth every single day.
Coach, you talked about injuries just for a moment, but I didn't see Jabril Hazley take any or many snaps last game. Is there anything going on with him?
Not physically, no. Again, right now, Derek Mayweather and Elijah Richardson are both playing extremely good football. We play a 4-2-5 defense, which means there's only 2 linebackers on the field the majority of the time. And, those guys are just really playing lights out football. Elijah Richardson had 11 tackles last week, a couple of more tackles for loss the game before. He had, same thing. And both of those guys are 2 of the top tacklers in the conference. And so Jabril is playing in other ways. He's playing on special teams. We actually, as a staff, had a conversation about him earlier in the week to see if maybe there's some other areas where we can find a way to get him on the field. But it's kind of like the backfield. I mean, when you got a guy that's hot, I mean, Bishop is lighting it up right now. So they may pull carries from Ricky Henrillis. They may pull carries from Devin Bowers or Deshaun Smith because one guy is really, really taking off. But we have two linebackers that are really playing good football for us, and so it's just hard for Jabril to find a place to get in there because you sacrifice production from those two if you take them off the field. And so it's not physically right now. It's just he's kind of the third backer in a two-man rotation with two guys that are really playing good football right now.
The defense is playing very well, and a key part of that is Chris Vadul, because the punch that he's booting the ball is making the other team work that much harder. Talk about Chris's just the impact that he's having in the year that he's having with you guys.
I think he's an unsung hero right now. And football is a game of field position, and of course, whenever you're as an offense asked to drive the ball 80 to 75 yards, that makes it extremely difficult. Even for the high-powered offenses, as opposed to getting the ball on the 50 or on the plus side of the field. So, even when the offense is struggling like we did in the first half of last week's game, when you can line up and punt the ball and almost kick half the football field away, I mean, that's monumental. That's huge. And so if we punt the ball from the 30, that's the team starting the next drive from the 20. And so it's making our defense play a lot better because they're having to defend the entire field and the offense having to drive. So as long as he can continue to kick the ball the way he's been kicking, it really sets it up for our defense to be productive. And he's a guy that, again, great attitude, great work ethic, and just like Bishop, I mean, the stuff that he's doing on game day is only a reflection of what he does every day in practice. And so, that's the message that we're trying to convey to our guys, that hard work pays off, and they're two great examples of what work during the week on the field, in the classroom, in the weight room will do for you on the field of competition. And I'm just happy for Chris, and of course, I know the team is happy because it's helping us win ball games. But special teams is a huge part of what we do, and hopefully we can continue to be pretty dominant in that phase.
And from a defensive standpoint, except for the Troy game, we've only given up 4 touchdowns and averaging 12.6 points a game. Talk about Coach Street's philosophy and all the things that he's teaching the guys and working with them. And I mean, you guys are just phenomenal on the defensive side of football this year.
Well, they're playing with a lot of attitude, and it's a multiple defense. We throw multiple looks at the opposition, but again, it's a scheme that allows our guys to play fast because a lot of what we do is dictated by them. They make the calls, they make the checks. It's predicated on what the offense is giving us. So it's really a microcosm of what we do offensively. We're an attacking style offense, but we want to take what the defense gives us. We're an attacking style defense, but we want to take the opportunities that the offense might present for us in the form of formations, alignments, offensive line sets, and things of that nature. So again, it takes a lot of film study. It takes a lot of practice time and repetition to be good in this defense. And fortunately for us, I think we have a group of guys right now that are really believing in the system that we haven't implemented here defensively, and they're taking the initiative to go in and watch the extra film to get the tips and reminders and the tendencies that the other team is giving us, because that's what makes them play at that level. And of course, they're playing fast. Playing fast it always helps, because when you make a mistake, if you're playing fast, you tend to get to the ball and prevent big plays. So if we can continue to play at that level, continue to get people off the field on third downs, I think it'll definitely make our team put our team in a position to have a chance to win games on Saturdays.
Coach, going on the road earlier this year against Troy, how can having a out-of-conference road game early on in the season, does that help prepare your team for when you're going on the road in the heart of conference play?
I think it gives them an idea of what the routine will be. We're kind of creatures of habit, with football. And so the fact that they'll now know what our time schedule is as far as when we'll meet, when we'll eat, things of that nature, I think it'll maybe make it a little more comfortable for them. Obviously, the MEAC has travel restrictions on the number of players that we can take on the road as opposed to a non-conference game. So that'll be a little bit of a challenge, knowing that we'll have smaller numbers than we had going to Troy. But again, it's all part of it. Every conference team traveling has the same restrictions. So it's a form of adversity, but like we talk about in this program, we embrace the adversity we have to make the most of it. But I do think being on the road at least one time earlier this year will help us with this long road trip to North Carolina.
Coach, going off of that, just with, do you stress with the guys that to be able to win a big road game that you have to limit penalties and turnovers and, taking advantage of every opportunity they have in big games like that to be able to go and get a big win, certainly if you have to play?
Well, we stress that all the time, home or away. I think being opportunistic is a big part of football. Being fundamentally sound is a huge part of football. And so whether you're home or on the road, I think you have to do the little things right. And of course, obviously, whenever you're on the road, you have the fear of the quote-unquote home field advantage that the other team and their fans provide. Fortunately for us, we have the best fan base in FCS football, so I fully anticipate a sea of orange and green to root this team on, to give us an advantage going into North Carolina. And so I think for our guys, just being poised, whatever the elements provide, we're going to probably go through some areas that have been affected by the storm, and just not losing focus as what we're going up there to do is a big part of traveling on the road. So. But again, we love road trips, and my defensive coordinator and I talk about it all the time. There's nothing like a bus trip. Flying is nice, and we all love to get on a plane and fly. It's shorter time. You got more time to kind of relax and downtime. But it's something about getting on the bus with your teammates, your brothers. You're sitting side by side, or you're laying across aisles together, and you're watching movies together, and just that bonding time that you really get to spend with each other is a special moment. And so hopefully this road trip will make this team grow closer. So at 4 o'clock on Saturday, we understand that we're all doing this for FAMU, and it'll channel us and focus us in to get the job done.
Coach, before the season, you talked quite a bit about closing out games. That was a thing that you were really hammering, and we needed to do that. So this is one of those teams that has taken advantage of that tendency to not be able to close out, and they've been the closer. So, do you feel like we're ready to flip the script?
Well, hopefully, if this season or this last week has been an indication, we're a second half football team. You look at our scoring throughout the 4 quarters. We have the most scores, I think, in the third or fourth quarter, which means that the coaches are doing a really good job of making halftime adjustments. The players are doing a great job of taking those adjustments and applying them to the game. I think that they're doing a better job of taking care of themselves physically so that you can sustain a 3-hour football game. There's some things nutritionally that we're doing at halftime I think that they didn't do in the past. And so whenever you ask a student athlete or any athlete to exert that type of force, that type of energy over 3 hours, eventually your body starts to break down. And so I think with Coach Brooks, our strength coach, with what we've done nutritionally has given our team a little bit of an edge. But second half football is a lot of times where it's won, and so we have to continue to play great second half football. The challenge for us now is to find a way to start fast. We have to start faster and maybe put some early points on the board. And if we can combine that with a strong second half, then maybe we'll see a lot of the offensive explosive games that we're accustomed to having, or that this team is capable of having.
Feeding off of that a little bit, Coach, I know obviously it's your first season here, but this is a program that over the last couple of years has lost a lot of very close ball games, has gone away again the last couple minutes. How big of a teaching point is that to guys, and how hard is that to hit home, and that ball games can be won and lost in the last 2-3 drives?
Well, I think the critical thing, or the thing that we have to be mindful of as coaches, is to not necessarily harp on the negative. Let's not spend a lot of time talking about the close losses, because you keep hearing that word loss, then that's what resonates in your brain. So we talk more about what it takes to finish games. We have our 7 F's. Well, one of those F's is finishing. So every Thursday we stress an element of finishing. We talk about it every day, but we make a huge point of emphasis on it on Thursdays. So how do you finish? I think, again, like I talked about, part of finishing is taking care of your body. You have to be able to be in shape. So our conditioning this summer, we called it our 4th quarter program. Why? Because games are won and lost a lot of times in the 4th quarter. We got to be able to finish those late games, those late drives when both teams are tired, both teams are fatigued. You're sweating, you're banged up, you're hurt. So you have to mentally and physically prepare yourself to be able to close those type of games. And so our conditioning was part of it. Again, our nutrition, what we're eating Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday morning and pregame, and then even at halftime is a part of it, because again, you have to fuel your body so that it doesn't break down. And in the past, I don't think they did much at halftime to give themselves that extra push to get them through the second half. And so we're doing some things there that maybe help us. But again, I think it's just a mindset of the guys. Again, we talk about what it takes to be a champion and to win, not what it doesn't take not to lose, if that makes sense. So we spend most of our time talking about things that we need to do, as opposed to focusing on maybe things in the past that they did wrong. And I think that's maybe helped our guys a little bit in those critical situations. And again, if it wasn't for a snafu by me and headsets, we probably finished 2 games in a row, and as opposed to just this last week.
All right. Are there any more questions? Anybody need any